Hi, I'm going to be talking about vaginismus and my experiences with vaginismus because I know that when I first heard that word and applied it to myself, I wanted people's testimonials, and there's really not all that much information out there about it, so hopefully this will be useful to somebody. General warning that I might talk about some graphic stuff, but maybe that should be obvious. Okay. Vaginismus is a vaginal muscle disorder. It results in muscle spasms and painful or difficult penetration, or just penetration being impossible. About 1 in 100 women will have it to some degree, but not necessarily an extreme degree. It's often considered psychosomatic, which means that there is a mental reason for the physical manifestation of the problem. Some common causes include sexual abuse and being brought up in a either religious or strict household where sex is wrong, which is also another reason why you see a lot of women who waited until marriage having the disorder, because you're brought up being told that sex is wrong so much, and then when it's finally okay, you can't really switch over to that way of thinking. And also because they wouldn't have a chance to really figure it out beforehand if they were waiting until after marriage. Sometimes there's no obvious cause, and sometimes there's not a mental cause. It can just be a muscle disorder. In my case, to the best of my knowledge, I was never abused. I wasn't really brought up in a household where sex was taught as wrong. But I think it probably stemmed from having a lot of self-esteem issues, having a lot of body image issues. I thought my vagina was gross and ugly, and I didn't want to look at it, I didn't want to touch it, I didn't want anything to do with it. And also being told that sex is going to be painful. So I think just the combination of those things, thinking that way for so long, is probably what caused it in me. And I know that finding a cause is really important for a lot of women. And when there's no obvious cause, to me, my explanation is satisfactory for me. Vaginismus is also, it's being described as hitting a wall a lot of times. Like, try to put something in there and there's just a wall. Why is that wall in my vagina? I don't know. And also the pain cycle. So, try to put something in there, it hurts, and your vagina's like, nope, I'm gonna close up because that's painful and I'm protecting this person, and then since you got tighter, it hurts more. So you get tighter, so it hurts more. So it's kind of like a stupid defense mechanism. It's a stupid vagina defense mechanism. It's just wrong, but that's what it does, and you gotta train it not to do that. There are 3 basic types of vaginismus. There's primary, that's what I have. It means penetration's never been easy. There's secondary, which means that penetration was fine for a while, and then either there was a specific incident that caused the vaginismus, or sometimes, again, there doesn't have to be a specific reason for it, but penetration used to be okay, now it's not anymore. And then there's temporary. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but it's either a sporadic event, or it happens randomly, no real cause. And sometimes vaginismus can be because of an infection or an STI or something. So my next point, it's always good to go to a gynecologist to figure it out. There's some other, as I said, vaginismus can kind of be a result of an STI or an infection or something. And there are some other disorders that are often seen with vaginismus, or often they're misdiagnosed as each other. I'm going to list 3. I know there must be more, but there's Vulvodynia, which I think is just general vulva pain. It can range from mild to debilitating. There's vestibulitis, which is pain specifically with the vestibule, which is at the entrance of the vagina. I don't have either of them, so I'm not an authority on the matter, but I think they're both managed with pain medication. And then also hymen problems. Sometimes people will go to a gynecologist and say penetration is hard, and they'll go, okay, it's probably a hymen problem. And sometimes people have unnecessary surgeries, or you can think it's vaginismus when it's really just vulvodynia or something, a pain disorder. And sometimes they can coexist. So it's always good to go to a gynecologist. I know that when I first started researching vaginismus, there was a lot of horror stories about going to gynecologists. Either they would shove the speculum in or go too fast, or people, in some of these stories, people will be like sobbing in the examination room and it'll be like ignored, and I'm not saying that these things don't happen. I believe that they happened, but I think generally they can be avoided. I didn't have a horror, I don't have a horror story to tell you about me personally. So if you're going for the first time, it's always a good idea to bring up your concerns before an examination starts. Say, hey, I'm here because I'm having penetration problems. I think it might be vaginismus, or I think it might be vulvodynia, or whatever you think it is. Tell them that before the examination starts. And if they don't suggest, okay, we're going to use the smallest speculum on you, you suggest that to them. Say, please use the smallest size you have because it's going to be painful, or it might not work otherwise. Also lube. And what worked for me, and this, when I first went to a gynecologist, I had already started the program that I'm going to talk about later, so I already kind of knew how. My vagina angled and shit. But the doctor couldn't get the thing in, so I was like, can I try? And when I tried to insert it, it works, and from there I had a pretty normal appointment. So just tell your doctor your issues beforehand, and of course if they're doing something you're uncomfortable with, if you're in pain, tell them and they will stop. They have to stop. You can't, you don't have to be in pain. My experience wasn't that bad. So my first, ever experience with anything vaginismus related was, when I got my first period. It's gonna be gross. I couldn't insert a tampon for the life of me, and my mom thought I was an idiot, and that's all there was to it. She was like, okay, my kid's an idiot, and I was like, yeah, can't figure it out, that's fine, and that's all there was to it for a really long time until I tried to have sex. I was 18, the summer of 2012, what a fateful summer. It didn't work. I didn't know what was happening, he didn't know what was happening, and we were like, weird, try again later, it'll be fine. And then we tried again later, and then we tried again later, and eventually I was like, okay, this is not normal at this point. I know that people have problems, but this is not normal. I think I tried to avoid it for a while. I just pretended I didn't have a problem, and then eventually I started like doing research and seeing if there was anything out there around probably like November of 2012. So like 5 months later or something, I came across the word vaginismus for the first time, and I thought, okay, this is probably it. I told my boyfriend. He ended up buying me the kit that I'm going to talk about. So yeah, as I was saying, Vaginismus.com was a super helpful resource for me. You can buy this kit. It's $100. It seems maybe that seems like a steep price, but I think it was totally worth it. With it, you get. I'm going to show you this shit. Completely Overcome Vaginismus. There's a book. You read through it. There's this book that I guess after you read that one, you kind of work through this one. It's basically a therapy session, or a few therapy sessions. It makes you delve into yourself. And then, so, it's been a while since I looked at this. So, the 10 steps. The 10 steps. Let's read them, shall we? Step 1. Where do I begin? Step 2. Mind over matter. Step 3. Anatomy and self-discovery. Step 4. The PC muscle group. Step 5. First insertion. Step 6. Graduated vaginal insertion. Step 7. Educating and pleasuring each other. Step 8. Pre-intercourse readiness exercises. Step 9. Making the transition to intercourse. And Step 10. To intercourse and beyond. Okay, so that all sounds very magical. Step 3. Anatomy and self-discovery is like... it has, goodness gracious, diagrams, and you'll learn about yourself, and you're forced to look at yourself. And that was super helpful to me, and I know to a lot of people. it might not be, because maybe you're fine with yourself, but for me personally, that was something that was fucked up with me, and that chapter helped me a lot. And then also, I was just uncomfortable with, like, naked things in general. I'll try to link these, but some other resources that totally help me there if you're like me and you need help with that aspect. The New Project, and then there's 2 Tumblrs. I think they're managed by the same woman, Large Labia and Our Breasts. I don't know. It's just naked people in a not super sexualized context. And it sounds shitty, but like desensitizing myself to naked women was a step for me, because I couldn't do it before. I couldn't look at naked people. I couldn't do it. It was just weird and gross to me, and now it's less weird and gross. I'll try to link those things if that's something you need help with, because that was helpful to me. Is step 4 the PC muscle group? Step 4 is the PC muscle group. So there's, the PC muscle group is like the pelvic floor muscle group, and you learn how to do Kegels and stuff, and they set you to like schedule of doing Kegels. So that's really helpful. That's kind of how you control everything. First insertion is like a Q-tip, usually. Graduated vaginal insertions. So this is probably maybe graphic. They give you 5 dilators. This one, 2, 3. I actually broke this one somehow. I don't know. It's jagged and should not be in the vagina anymore. 4 and 5. And, I mean, if you have a partner and they happen to be bigger than this, then you might have to go out to a sex shop and buy something bigger, and that's a whole other get out of your comfort zone, go do it thing. So, and you get this handle. So, I mean, like, boop. It's like a popsicle or something. But the handle is super helpful for rapid insertions. You have like insertions where you just kind of leave the thing in there for a while and then you wouldn't use the handle, and you have insertions where rapid, which is helpful with the handle. Lube, whatever. This works for me. I know a lot of people like coconut oil, and coconut oil, if you're using it, it does come in a jar like this, because originally I was like, why is this solid? But it's solid, and then you scoop it and it like melts. So a lot of people use coconut oil as lube. I do. I prefer water-based lube, but coconut oil is, you get a lot of it for cheap, so that's a good thing. And it's safe to use with these guys, but if you're using condoms, don't use oil-based lube unless it's specified that it's okay, because it eats away at latex. That ain't good. What else? Okay, so if you're working through most of this, I know a lot of people think therapy, like talking therapy, is a super important aspect of this. And if you have the means to go to a therapist, by all means do it, because it can't be detrimental. I'm in school right now, and I went to, I think, only 2 therapy sessions with a therapist through the school, so it was free, and that's why I did it. If it wasn't free, I probably wouldn't have. But when I went to her, she wasn't a vaginismus specialist. She was a sex therapist, but she wasn't vaginismus specifically, and she did say, like, this is not my specialty, but in her opinion, she was like, you basically understand your situation enough, in my opinion, come back if you need to. And I think she gave me maybe the name of a vaginismus therapist. But I kind of had this expectation going in that it would open some door to me, but it didn't for me. But again, if you have the means to go, because maybe your experience will be great, and maybe you will come out realizing, wow, I never thought of it that way. It could be super helpful. So I would say try it if you can, and you don't necessarily have to, though, is my point. You don't necessarily have to. Also, a physical therapist. A physical therapist is something that a lot of people use. I have never been to one. I can't justify the cost. And if you're going to a physical therapist, you do, generally, you're looking for a pelvic floor specialist, in general. And I know they can be recommended by a lot of gynecologists. I know of a site where they're listed by region. I'll try to link that below. Like I said, I have not been to a physical therapist. However, I think that if I did go, I would get to where I am today a lot faster. Again, if you have the means, try it out, because it can't be detrimental, really. I just kind of forgot to mention this. Also, when you buy the kit, you also get a DVD on how to use the dilators originally, which, you know, is weird when it's your first experience with it. It's helpful to watch, even if you might be squeamish about this stuff. And another thing you get is access to the forum that is on vaginismus.com, which is not particularly active. However, there's a lot of, it's not really active that much now, but there's a whole bunch of different experiences that people have had. They've talked about it. There's a bunch of discussions going on. Well, again, it's not so active now, but you can read past discussions. There's a lot of stuff there, even though it's not super active now. Another resource, which you don't need to buy anything to go, there's a subreddit. It's reddit.com/r/vaginismus, which, again, is not super active. I'll post on it occasionally, but there are, if you go back far enough, there's a lot of different things, and you can probably find something that would be useful to you there. I'll link that. And next thing, getting yourself on a schedule, dilating. I've had this kit for, I guess, about 2 years now, and it's taken me at least a year to get this far, but if I had set myself to a schedule, I think it would have been much faster. In general, there is, I think it's like a 95% success rate of women who have this problem, and some people get over it in like 2 months, and they're good to go forever. I'm not like that, but you certainly could be, and it's good to set yourself to a schedule, which I know can be a little bit difficult in the beginning, but again, I'm going to get graphic. At this point, I try to dilate for at least 2 hours every day, which can be difficult, especially if you're working full-time, or if you're going to school full-time, or if you're living at home. It can be weird. But at this point, I'm using the largest dilator, and pretty much if I'm sitting around my apartment, if I'm doing dishes, if I'm making food, if I'm eating food, if I'm watching TV, if I'm doing homework or studying, I probably have this thing inside of me. If it's anything that doesn't involve a lot of movement, like I can walk around with the largest dilator in, and I probably am if I'm at home. It's weird. But that's the time that I have to do it. My time to do this is when I'm studying, or when I'm cleaning, or when I'm eating, just anytime I'm in my house. Also sleeping. Sometimes if I don't have, sometimes if I don't have time during the day, I'll just sleep with it in, which can be super difficult. I've yet to get more than maybe 2 hours of sleep with one of these things in. It's uncomfortable for me. But you kind of do what you have to do. And at this point, I have noticed that if I go a day without dilating at all, it'll be way more difficult the next day. And I'm thinking that over time it'll probably get easier. I'm hoping it will. I'm hoping over time this will get easier. But yeah, you kind of have to set yourself to a schedule if you want quick results. But in the beginning I didn't have a schedule at all, and I did make rapid progress up until about the 3rd dilator, this baby. I made pretty rapid progress even though I wasn't really on a schedule, and then I kind of plateaued. Another thing, if you're going through this, don't let yourself get too discouraged. Also, don't beat yourself up, because I spent so much time beating myself up, and I'm going to be a hypocrite when I'm saying this, but it's not my fault. it's not my fault that I have this problem. Nobody wants to have this. It's unfortunate that I have it, but it's not my fault, and I'm doing pretty much everything in my power to fix it, so I shouldn't feel bad about it. And I still do, but I know rationally I really shouldn't. So, when I found out I had this problem, I was in a relationship. And he was super supportive, and having vaginismus does totally complicate your relationships. It does. There's not much of a way around it. It can make things super shitty. My boyfriend at the time was very, very supportive, and I beat myself up so much. I might have ruined the relationship for myself. I'm not even sure, but at this point, we broke up a while ago. And honestly, there was a point where I was working through this, when I was in the relationship and I was working through the workbook, I was working through dilating, I would get so discouraged, I would feel so broken, and the fact that I had someone there that I felt like I was disappointing almost held me back in some aspects. In some aspects it helped me, in some aspects it made me feel guiltier. So really, depending, if you're single or if you're in a relationship, excuse me, if you're single or if you're in a relationship, there are positives and there are negatives to both situations. Almost when I was single, I think I almost made more progress because I didn't feel so much pressure. And it wasn't that he was pressuring me. It was kind of me doing it to myself, but I almost made more progress when I was single, I think. Dating. I have fucked this up royally several occasions. If you're dating with vaginismus, it's hypocritical, again, of me to say this, but be upfront about it. I couldn't bring myself to be upfront about it, and I know that it just caused more problems for me. But really, even though it might feel like a lie sometimes, if you tell someone you have this and they leave, good riddance, because they weren't worth it in the first place. Keep telling yourself that. It might sound like a lie sometimes, but it's for the better. I've been humiliated by this, and I could have saved myself some humiliation if I was more upfront. So keep that in mind. Again, I'm being very down on myself. Just because you have this doesn't mean you can't be sexual. Manual stuff can still be on the table. Oral stuff. Outer course is pretty rad. And for some people, anal stuff. But again, depending on how comfortable you are with things, and also PC muscle groups and butt muscles are kind of in the same group, so in some cases you might be too tight butthole, depending on the situation. Anyway, if you're struggling through this, know that there is like a 95% success rate. It's achievable. It's really achievable. You kind of have to be willing to set yourself to a schedule. You have to be willing to delve into yourself a little bit. And it can almost be a blessing in disguise, because through this I have gotten more comfortable with myself. I've gotten more comfortable with my sexuality. I have gotten rid of some people who weren't worth it in the first place. And try to be positive. Try not to get too down on yourself. Try not to overthink the situation. And I hope this was helpful to somebody. And best of luck to you. You can totally do it. Go get laid, sister. Bye.